Good morning, good afternoon, and hello. Welcome to today's webinar, Dashboard Strategies for Nonprofits. My name is Max Smith. I'm the Director of Communications for 501c Services. Really quickly, a little bit about us. We are a 100% employee-owned company that provides alternatives to state-run unemployment insurance programs. We provide our services to more than 1,500 nonprofits nationally. We administer the 501c Agencies Trust, which offers a comprehensive suite of risk management services and multiple stop-loss protection solutions for 501c3 nonprofits. And we also offer UInsure, which is a first dollar unemployment insurance program, not only for nonprofits, but government entities and tribally owned businesses as well. And finally, we also operate the Nonprofit HR Hotline, which serves more than 2,000 for-profit and nonprofit organizations across the country with simple HR consulting services. Many of you on today's webcast are already working with us, and we appreciate you being here today. I have a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce next month's webinar and our panelists today. First of all, how are we going to handle questions today? Ian and Sarah are going to take questions as we go. So if you have any questions, please throw them into the questions module of the GoToWebinar program, and I will push those to Ian and Sarah as we go. If we have time at the end, we will try to cover any that we weren't able to get to during the program. A copy of today's presentation is also already available in the GoToWebinar platform. If you go down to handouts, there's a PDF, and that's today's slides, so you can download those now and follow along, or they will also be emailed to you later today. 1 hour after we're done, we will send you a copy of the program video and a copy of the slides. Also, real quickly, next month's webinar is Managing Performance Effectively in Nonprofit Organizations. We will have Stephanie Martinez from HR Design for You. She's out of Chicago. She's going to go over not the dreaded annual performance review, but the entire function from soup to nuts. She will share some new strategies and tell you which traditional efforts may not be, should not be used today. So now I'm going to introduce Ian in Scotland. And just so everybody knows, we're going to be doing several handoffs today. So you're going to have to bear with us as we do that. We're going to try to act like professionals here. So I'm going to hand this off to Ian, and then he will take it away, introduce himself and Sarah.
Hello, everybody. My name's Ian Scotland, and I work with AccuFund. We are a company that makes accounting software for nonprofits. We help over 1,000 clients nationwide, and we are basically an ERP system. I've been working with nonprofits for over 30 years. I was a staff as a controller, CFO, and then I've been a consultant. I've helped over 400 nonprofits in implementing accounting software, payroll, and then currently I'm the general manager, vice president of AccuFund, and I've been working with AccuFund since 2003 and have loved working with the company. And also on the line is Sarah Finley. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Sarah. I've been working with AccuFund for 8 years now, and the entirety of my career with AccuFund, I've been working with nonprofits who are looking to take advantage of Salesforce, which is a CRM solution for nonprofits, and implementing and optimizing those solutions to make the best of that platform. I also have 2 certifications with Salesforce and work with a variety of different nonprofits, from community-based, religious-based, faith-based, just a ton of different vertical markets. So I have a lot of experience in seeing different types of requests and KPI requests that we're going to go through today.
Okay, so today's presentation is on dashboards. And if I can get my screen to behave here. So why dashboards? Dashboards are often something that people are a little skeptical about and think they're a fad. And I will admit that I've been in that boat. I've sort of had, when they first came out, kind of took that position myself. But pictures, as you've heard, tell 1,000 words. And a graph can portray complex scenarios and subtle situations with ease. So this is a sample of a dashboard. We'll be seeing many more throughout the presentation. Why dashboards again? Images help us learn and remember. So you've heard, and I'm sure many of you are, kind of pictorial thinkers or pictorial learners, and they help us. It's hard to remember a number on a financial statement, but it's pretty easy to remember a dashboard graph that you saw. They quickly transmit information to our brain. They tell the story of your organization, something that might take many words to explain. Somebody can just see pictorially. They help us see behind the numbers. So a dashboard can portray a pretty complex thing, like we'll talk about liquid unrestricted net assets, pictorially, and that's certainly a behind the numbers thing. Why dashboards for nonprofits? Why are they so useful in the nonprofit environment? Because nonprofits are complex. There's a lot going on, even in the smallest nonprofits. Sustainability is an issue, but yet sometimes the sustainability of an organization is not easily told. It isn't easily reflected in a financial statement, or maybe something like, what's the cost of the services we deliver? Sometimes those sort of things aren't really easy to see. So that's something that a dashboard can do. Often our volunteer boards are not experts in reading financial data or financial statements, and also not just the boards, but sometimes staff. And so dashboards can really help explain that. And we have difficulty portraying program metrics and outcomes in meaningful ways. So a great thing that a dashboard can do is, if you have a program manager that manages some important outreach of your nonprofit, and they're judged by their performance if they have some sort of portal that they log into to see how many clients they've served, or what the cost is, or are they under budget. And if they have it in a dashboard, they can see it quickly rather than having to run a report. So there's a lot to be said for dashboards that go to all your employees, and we'll talk about that more later. So who can use a dashboard? So I would argue practically everybody. Board of directors, finance team, program staff. I just gave that example. So the board would want to look at things that are different than the finance team, and the finance team would want to see things that are different than program staff. Fundraising and development would want to see some different things than the board and finance. IT folks, they want to see things like how many cases did we have this year versus last year? How long did we take to help people? Human resources. For them, a lot of times the dashboards are more lists. What trainings do I have coming up? Whose certifications are expiring? Mac could probably add some thoughts on that with his HR experience. Facilities and property. So what leases are coming up? What tenants are going to expire? What vacancy rate do we have? How's our rent collection, our accounts receivable doing? And those make great dashboards.
Ian, if I can just add to that real quick,
Yep.
Even to the last slide about, why dashboards, and now who, depending on maybe what system you're using to develop your dashboards in, there will be licensing. So certain users will have to have actual access to the system, a license assigned to them in order to sign in and see them. And so a lot of staff are often telling me, how am I have a board member or I have an executive who doesn't have access to our database, but they're asking me every single day for updated numbers or what's an easy way to get metrics to them when they don't have access to the system at all. And dashboards can be a very quick way where you can simply take a screenshot instead of exporting something and sending them a complete tabular list view of 2,000 records to see a full number. Dashboards make a really great way to take that screenshot and send those updated metrics on whatever the frequency is that's being asked of you to get that off really quick.
Yes. Yep. Good point. So we're going to dive into these a little more further in other slides. Let's see here. So which dashboards? So let's talk about boards and executive directors. They tend to look at things like liquidity, or what's the trend of liquidity, how are we doing budget-wise and performance-wise at a top level. They're not looking at like specifics. They're looking at a top level. Finance, they want to see liquidity. They may want to see some HR stuff. They want to see performance. And so they're a little different than the board, but a little kind of similar. Program folks, they want to see what's the impact of our program, what's the cost to the agency, are we a use of funds, or do we contribute funds? Fundraising development, they want to know what's the fundraising performance, how are we doing on our goals, how are we doing compared to last year. HR, they're interested in compliance, maybe enrollment. They have a lot of possibilities of dashboards of HR folks. IT, time per case, cost per user. So anyway, that's some uses. Let's talk about some common terms for dashboards. Key results indicator. So a KRI explains, I'm going to move my little, I'll get this little widget here. I've got to move. Explains how an organization has performed in relation to a specific perspective or a critical success factor. How have we done? What's our result? Hang on here. Result indicator, again, so maybe not a key one, explains what an organization has done. A performance indicator is more on what we're doing. How are we doing on a ongoing basis? And a KPI represents measures focusing on those aspects of organizational performance that are most critical to the current and future success. And so I think this is a key, the current and future success. So they're kind of predictive. The KPI is the most frequently used term. So you'll hear the other ones are a little more academic, but KPI, that's the one. If you walk away from this webinar remembering KPI and KPIs, that you will have learned something. So that's a commonly used term to say, what do you need to see? What is your KPI? So some more terminology. There's also some different types of dashboards. So a strategic dashboard is a dashboard that provides metrics of KPIs, key performance indicators. These dashboards are commonly used to high-level management, like the board, to reflect an organization's mission or goals. So strategic one is often a complex calculation or a comparative. So here's one, a common one, liquid unrestricted net assets. If we were really fancy, we could do a poll. Be interesting to know how many people know what liquid unrestricted net assets is. Liquid, and it's in a slide later. So when you download this, you'll have what the formula is. But basically, you take unrestricted net assets, your unrestricted net assets number, and then you subtract out what fixed assets is, and then other sort of sunken costs that are unrestricted, and that gives you the liquid portion of your unrestricted net assets. Because you might have $3 million of unrestricted net assets, but you might be sitting in a building that you completely own, so there's no loan, no nothing, and it's a $2 million asset, and so it's really not liquid, right? And so you have to subtract that $2 million out of your $3 million net asset to get to your true liquid unrestricted net assets of $1 million. So so it's useful to have a gauge that tells you, that's a good sample of a gauge where it would tell you kind of where you want to be. Maybe they want to be at 40,000 and they're at 20,000 here. So 20 looks like 21 to me. So that's what Luna is. Quick ratio, that's another complex one where you're showing, how much cash do I have to cover my liabilities, or my current assets to cover my liabilities. So that's a great indicator where it's not a graph per se, but it's a number. And this might be something that the board would want to see, and certainly treasurer would want to see, or a controller, CFO would want on their dashboard. Tactical dashboards. Tactical dashboards provide decision-making information on a nonprofit's overall performance, maybe for a specific department or program or part of the organization. So whereas Luna is the organization as a whole, a tactical dashboard can maybe help you discern decisions you want to make. So here you have a dashboard that's a budget to actual by program. So nonprofit executives use tactical dashboards to review, benchmark programmatic activities. Departmental managers often use them for managing key decision points, like clients served. This could be a graph of how many clients you said you were going to serve versus how many you actually did. There's a lot of possibilities, which we're going to talk about in a minute here. But so that's a tactical dashboard. And an operational dashboard is sort of a day-to-day one. So these are ones just provide pictures of just your daily activities. Program managers would use operational dashboards to check program status, or like, what's my enrollment? HR might use an operational dashboard to monitor compliance. Accounts payable might use one for aging or days payable. So here we have a AP aging, kind of telling us just at a brief view, like, what percentage is more than 90 days old, or what percentage is it not due. So that's a useful dashboard, and just kind of gives you the view, lets you see that there's, you could also have a dashboard that's like, show me my top 5 AR invoices outstanding, or show me my top 5 oldest accounts receivable invoices in a list. So it's not a graph, it's merely a list, but it's still a useful dashboard. Oh yeah, here's one. Employee reviews due. So here's a dashboard that's showing when some reviews are due. And that would be the sort of even though it's not a graph, it would be the sort of thing a HR person might want. So delivering dashboards, how do we make them and how do we deliver them to our users? There's a number of ways, and we're going to cover some of them here. One way, Excel. Good old Excel or some spreadsheet. The advantages of Excel are almost everyone has Excel spreadsheet. They do make nice graphs. You can create complex formulas for analyzing data, such as Luna. You can mix data from multiple systems. So you can bring in data from, say, a case management and data from your accounting software and do some multiplication and division to come up with cost per client, let's say. Disadvantages, however, data is static. It's generally not a live feed. Even if it is there's two versions of the stat. One is you're plunking in the data manually. The other is the Excel spreadsheet grabs data from the databases, the SQL database. But even then, it's not really live. It's hard to distribute it daily, regularly, because someone has to prepare them. So often a board dashboard, it'd be interesting to how many of you have board dashboards, and is that board dashboard done in Excel? Often the case is yes, because it allows you to do a wide variety of dashboards for your board presentation. And that's a good practice, but it's you have to email it out. Data security can be a challenge because you've got this Excel spreadsheet that you've got kind of raw data sitting in, and maybe that raw data is made up of people's salaries that you don't really want the IT person to see, yet the IT person's got to see it in order to make the dashboard do the math or the graph do the math. So that can be a challenge with Excel as well. Accounting software. So kind of generic off-the-shelf accounting software. So accounting staff can have daily access. The data is live, it's not static. Often they have canned dashboards. QuickBooks has nice dashboards in the recent versions. They're kind of canned, put in, and they require a little setup. Disadvantages is that it's limited to the accounting office users. So you can't really have a dashboard for your program managers. You can't really have a dashboard that a board member can log into. And so that's a disadvantage of having it in your just plain accounting software. It only provides dashboards on accounting data because it's not getting data from other systems. And so therefore, it's kind of limited to operational database dashboards, like what's my accounts payable, what's my accounts receivable, statistics on vendors and customers and things like that. And they can't do a complex analysis, like it usually can't do Luna. It certainly couldn't do Luna. It might probably not be able to do quick ratio or current ratio. Another one is an ERP system. So AccuFund would count as that ERP system. We can make our dashboards available to all staff and board and others if you give them rights. The data is live and not static. You can do complex calculations to create strategic and tactical dashboards for that program manager to make decisions or board member. You can mix program and client data with accounting data. Like we have a client module and a program module, but we also have ways to feed data in from other systems to also help with that. Disadvantages, well, it's certainly more expensive than Excel or an accounting or like QuickBooks. So it's a good solution for large organizations, but if you're a small nonprofit just getting started, then Excel or some other accounting software can be a better fit. There's more setup and planning, which is a good thing and a bad thing. You've got more options. It's sort of funny. I've done many software implementations, and usually towards the end of the software implementation is dashboard time. And I would say to my folks that I'm training and setting up, okay, so it's time to do dashboards. What dashboards do you want? And often I'd get this blank look like, I don't know. So you have to, it's a bit of a process to think through what dashboards would be useful. What would accounts payable want? What would HR want? What would the controller want? And kind of go through that process before you even get to the dashboards. You have to think through what is that useful to us. And also, as a slide later, but I'm going to say it now, those things might change over time. You might set up a dashboard when you're in financial kind of tough financial times, and you would want to see a certain number of dashboards. But maybe a year later, 2 years later, you're in better financial times, but you've added a bunch of programs. So now you want to look at, well, let's have some different dashboards. So dashboards are also not a static thing. You will have, you want to constantly be kind of looking at what dashboards you have and tweaking them to get a better number dashboards. Another option near and dear to our hearts is CRM fundraising software. I don't know, Sarah, do you want to take a turn on this one?
Of course. So with the CRM system, most out there are going to allow you to integrate multiple types of data. So Ian's been talking about having maybe different systems, case management versus an accounting system. But most CRM marketplaces or solutions on the marketplace today are going to allow you to create a central location for all of your data. And when we talk about CRM and fundraising, we're talking more about volunteer data, online donations, our event attendance. And when we think about that, and in tactical dashboards, dashboards that allow us to make decisions based on previous performance, the advantages to having dashboards built in a full fundraising system is we have the ability to take a really deep dive at a high level into multiple years of data. So an example might be comparing the return on investment from an event that we held for 5 years and taking a look, is that income increasing, is it decreasing, and comparing that over time to different marketing initiatives, not just events or drives, but multiple types of involvement with the organization. And when we talk about different components, things like volunteer information, maybe some type of scholarship applicant that you might build into your system, or any types of custom programs that your CRM system has, our dashboards or dashboards in that type of system can have metrics on different types of data on the same page for you. So when you're looking at maybe something called a development dashboard, which we'll see in just a little bit, you might have components that are showing you year-to-date comparisons of your donation dollars, and you might also have a dashboard that's showing you how much money is going to each fund in your system. So we can show you multiple components for all the different hats that you wear in your organization, or for multiple staff to use the same dashboard no matter what your scenario might be for your organization. And similar disadvantages to the ERP system is it is more expensive than using just Excel. With a CRM system like Salesforce, they do donate the first 10 licenses to a 501c3 organization, but you also might incur costs from a consulting firm or just internal staff time setting up and learning the new system, which segues into just more setup and planning. Getting to know the user adoption can take a little bit longer for a staff to adapt to a system like Salesforce or other CRM solutions.
So here, I'm just bringing these up here. Tips on delivering. So as I was saying before, they are an ongoing process. It's a commitment that you need to make that you're going to start implementing dashboards in your organization. It's not just something you do in an afternoon when you don't have much to do. They are critical because they can really help you set goals, express your goals, hold people to their goals. They're really useful, but they are an ongoing process. And like I said before, what you might focus on might change. Don't expect complete success in the first try. That is for sure, because it's trial and error to make sure you're comparing the right data and getting what people actually need. So they take planning and trial and error. Change happens. So the dashboard that was useful 6 months ago may not be the dashboard that's useful today. And then also you'll find that you'll tweak them. Yeah, but what if I just added this in? Then so as you kind of stare at the numbers, you'll find that you can do a better job with them. So who needs what? So next few slides, we're going to break down more on the role of the user. We need to think through what's important for each role, and then create the dashboards that's best to deliver that information. So it should be a process that involves the end user. You might take the board. We might have a board take part of a board meeting, and maybe show them some sample dashboards and say, okay, these are some samples. what would you like to see? Or sit down with the program manager and say, here's some sample dashboards that I think or that other nonprofits use, and and what would you like to see? What would be useful to you? And have other staff involved in that discussion, such as IT, or internal development person, things like that, as you work on how are you going to deliver these dashboards. Is it through a CRM system such as Salesforce? Is it through your accounting software? Is it through an ERP system? Is it through Excel? There are also commercially available tools that they make dashboards too. So that's a possibility as well.
Hey, Ian, before you move on,
yeah.
Sherry wants to know if you have a thought or opinion about the average budget size that a nonprofit usually is before they start using a CRM or an ERP system. Do you have any thoughts on that? How big do they usually get before they start incorporating these?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say from an AccuFund side, say about an organization of about 3-4 million and up, because then their priorities start changing and they're getting more people involved, and that they also, the auditors will start saying, you need an accounting system that has more internal controls, and so when you start getting to that point where your auditors are saying tisk tisk, you're getting too big for QuickBooks, or your existing software is too old, then it's a smart thing to do to expand the software to, well, maybe we can kill a few birds with this stone. Maybe we aren't just replacing the accounting software, but maybe we can get some software that keeps track of our program outcomes, our clients, or maybe in the case of Salesforce, like we do Salesforce, a CRM system that can also be used for not just donation management, but also other things like volunteer management. But that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. Examples for executive director and board. So this might be a board dashboard here, where you've got Luna. How many months of liquidity do we have? We're at a month. Oh my gosh. Revenue by source. So where's the money coming in? How many months of cash do we have sitting around? Which is a different thing. So this is where earlier on I talked about them painting a complex picture easily. So these are kind of nonsense dashboards, but at the same time it might be, why do we have a month of liquidity but yet 12, 13 months of cash? Because there might be some other liabilities that could come due, that would change that liquidity number. If somebody's staring at a balance sheet, they're not going to maybe get that picture that the dashboard would tell on this. And it also helps if you're a CFO, and you log into your accounting software or your ERP software, you're going to see these dashboards, and it's going to really let you know, like, oh, we got to focus on this. So dashboards would be focused on liquidity, like cash balances, net assets, liquid unrestricted net assets. And here's the definition of Luna, amount of net assets available to support your operations. And here's the formula: unrestricted net assets less fixed assets and other not liquid assets. In some cases, it's just your fixed assets. Some cases, like say you had fixed asset, but it was paid for by permanently restricted funds, then, and they're still in an endowment, then you wouldn't necessarily have to take out fixed assets. But if it's a building you own that was donated to you, that is not, but had unrestricted net assets as a part of it, then you better back it out when you look at what your unrestricted net assets are. Comparison by year of net assets. Are we doing better or worse overall? Organizational reserves as a portion of operations. So how many months of reserves do we have, maybe? Net assets divided by operations. That would kind of give you a reserve. Operational surplus trends. So just look at your overall net income. Is it going up or down? And you could do that on a by program basis too. That would be interesting. More overall budget to actual. So board, they may not want to see what every program does budget to actual, but you might want to show them overall budget to actual. Performance, year-to-year comparison. So revenue, is revenue up or down? Payroll as a number is good as well. Receivables, are receivables up or down? Our outcomes or deliverables, are we helping as many people this year as last year? Efficiency percent, which would be supporting expenses as a portion of total expenses. So how much money are we spending on back office? Outlier and exceptional information. So we were just saying up here, we want to give them overall budget to actuals, the first thing there, but we might want to give them a dashboard of just the outlier programs, the ones that are doing well or maybe not that well. Dashboards for the finance team, back office. So here's a finance person's dashboard. They've got, what are my cash balances today? How's my month's liquidity? Man, we're flush. What's my current ratio and quick ratio? How many months cash do I have? How's my payroll doing? So here's my budget, here's my actual, a little under budget, that's a good thing. What's my AP aging like? We're pretty good. Look at that. We don't really have that much over 90 due. So this is a dashboard I wouldn't mind so much looking at every day. But in other cases, it might tell you more of a more urgent story. So liquidity again, how much cash do I have? Outstanding balance on the line of credit, that might be a good one to have. Current ratio, debt service coverage ratio, accounts receivable, again, the days receivable, accounts payable, invoice cycle time, how quickly are we paying our invoices out? That one might be really good for a trend. HR, this is, like I said before, there's some really good HR ones. Employee turnover, payroll costs to budget, payroll costs versus previous years, workers' comp claims, and what about unemployment ones? Actually, I bet 501c could come up with some good unemployment ones. Performance, budget to actual, comparison of revenue expense to prior years, revenue expense by program, particularly the outlying programs maybe, depends on the size of your agency. If you have 200 programs, a dashboard, it'd be hard to put that in the dashboard. And that's worth mentioning. Sometimes it's difficult. You have to think through, you've got so much data that you need to condense. This is sort of an HR one. So this is employee reviews due, trainings due to expire. Oh, my dates are missing in there. Overall payroll, budget to actual. This might be this one's just a graph of my payroll expenses by month. This would help me see if I had a real outlier month. Why is that month so much higher than all the rest? Program managers. So what would be good for a program manager to see? Profit and loss by program, budget to actual by program, by their program, I mean. Client served and enrollment goals, cost per client. How much is the client costing us this year compared to last year? Time to serve client, maybe. Client demographics, ethnicity, gender, etc. If you have to keep an eye on that. Staff levels per client. So here's a dashboard where we've got how many clients and what's our cost per client. What's the payroll budget to actual for this particular program? That's useful because you can sort of keep an eye on how you're doing. Client enrollment. So we've enrolled 5, our goal was 8. but it's okay because today's the 19th, so we should make that. All right, Sarah.
Yes. So switching gears a little bit to development, again, we're talking about these high-level metrics. What do our staff need to be seeing? What's going to help them in their role in the organization? So just some features about some standard CRM dashboards. Again, we do have the ability to create role-based dashboards where if your fundraisers are looking for major gift cycles or accountants are looking for posted transactions in a CRM system. We have the ability to switch out those roles within the system, or even, again, combine them all into one master dashboard, so all staff are working collaboratively with all of the dashboards in the system. And security settings, Ian had mentioned, sensitive data. In some CRM systems, we're keeping sensitive information about our clients, our donors, or whatever the scenario might be. And in our dashboards, we're going to make sure that those security settings follow through so that if volunteers are only supposed to be seeing donations under $100, as an example, the dashboards, when they view them, are going to reflect the data records and the sum total of data that they have viewing access to in the system. Just some popular KPIs that I run across a lot of the times, and a lot of the times people are asking me, how do I know what's going to help me in my role? How can I measure success? And these are some top performing dashboards that we build out inside of CRM System. So our LIBIT and SIBIT reports, that stands for last year but not this year, or some year but not this year. And so that's going to be a donor who gave money to me last year, but they have not yet this year. So who are our top donors last year? Maybe they gave us over $10,000, but this year they have not donated yet. Donations by lead source, where is our efforts best spent when it comes to online donating versus snail mail? Let's look at the donation by revenue or lead source. Or even just looking at overall donation comparisons for a total fiscal or calendar year. What were our best years, and then being able to drill into, well, what were we doing to solicit donations, or what were our methods of fundraising at that time?
Oh, one more.
And capital campaign. So again, same thing to annual overall, but capital campaign, you might be running a 5-year capital campaign. What year has been more successful? And again, where do we focus our efforts to continue the increase in revenue? So performance report, just as an example for you guys to see a visual, and we'll get into these a little bit more. This is an example of what we call funnel charts, and this is grouping our gifts in our entire fundraising database by a gift range. So some of the colors you'll see gifts under $100 or gifts from $100 to $1,000. And what this system or what this dashboard is doing is it's telling us how much revenue has come in for gifts in that gift range, in that amount range. And so something like this might provoke a development director to say, hey, 2 years ago, we had $574,000 in revenue for gifts over $10,000. And last year, we had $289,000 of revenue for $10,000 plus gifts. What are we lacking? Where's the white space for those donors? And that's $300,000 difference. And these amount ranges can be customized. So if your organization typically doesn't receive gifts at these amount levels, you can customize them to create ranges that are more appropriate or that you might be wanting to track more closely. And so again, this is comparing 3 years worth of data gifts based on amount ranges and where most gifts are coming in at what level. So the next slide is going to look at development performance in terms of maybe more individual donations. So in a CRM system, you might be tracking both individual donors and organizational or grantor donors or contributors. And a graph like we see on this page is showing us by what's our donor type, what donors are more engaged with the organization giving. And we can see very clearly from this graph that on the left-hand side, the household account giving is not there. In 2017, there was barely any gifts. In 2019, there's barely any gifts versus the organizational giving on the right-hand side. So again, finding that white space or where giving is just tapering off altogether, a graph like this might provoke the development director to say, hey, we need to create a campaign to engage more individual donors. Let's figure out how to do that to be successful and new types of revenue generation. So the next slide is is more of a performance. So we've talked a little bit about on the ERP and the accounting side performance goals, and this is what something might look like on a fundraising side, is where we're going to set a goal. In this example, our goal to fundraise this year is $355,000. And in real time, we can see so far this year, we've raised 223, so we're 63% to our goal. So I really like these gas gauge like dashboard components because I think they give a really nice picture. I think that they can even serve as a morale booster to update staff or send these out to say, look how close we are. And the fun thing too is you can actually even customize how I have the kind of the segments here, to where if you have a smaller goal and you want to break that out into exact thirds to meet your goal, or if you want to create different segments to say our lowest goal is 100,000, but our highest goal is 500 with $1 million. You do have the ability to really customize the way that this graph would represent the revenue that you're looking to raise within a calendar or fiscal year. And so the next, just a couple more, just to kind of jog your brains about what else could be possible in a CRM system. Grants, forecasting out the probability of receiving a certain amount of revenue from a grant that you're tracking in your system. Pledge installments, revenue that you'd expect within the next 30 days and the probability of that coming in. Membership organizations, based on, if I have 90% of my donors joining in January, what are we doing different in January versus the other 11 months of the year? And also even turning that into a revenue expectancy. We're expecting 85% of our membership revenue in this month. Let's make sure we get our renewals out. Let's make sure to track what members aren't renewing. So things in that nature related to membership, and even donor demographics, looking at, our average donor is 55 plus and a male. What do we need to do to engage females or specific locations? So there are other ideas behind development, and it really is based on what type of fundraising does your organization do, that can help determine, some possibilities like this. And so now we're going to jump into, Ian's going to close out of the this and jump into AccuFund to show you some live examples, not just screenshots.
So this web browser, actually I'm going to log out and log back in so you can see it a little better. This is the AccuFund employee portal. The idea being that it can be, even though it says employee portal, you could even have board members log in. But the idea is that it's in a web browser, and the employee can log in, and from this window they see the dashboards that they are. You have to put in the right password, but once you get past that, you get the dashboards that are meant for this person. So this is again the kind of the sample one of the samples we've seen. This is probably the controller or CFO. Here he's got the cash balances, the current and quick ratios, maybe some program statistics overall. So we're getting in $250 per client, and they're costing us $226. So we're in good shape on that. Or are we? What's their percent? What's our goal for cost per client here? That'd be an interesting dashboard. Here's Luna. Here's month's cash. So this is one person's view, and then I'm going to log out here, and I'm going to log in as a different person. And then you'll see here that this is the HR person, and so their dashboards are what are my employee reviews due, what trainings are due, and budget to actual. Also of interest might be that in the employee portal you can do things like people can view their pay stubs, they can retrieve their W-2, they can put in their time, they can put coming is the ability to put in a requisition for payment, they can put in approval for time off. So it's a spot that what's neat about it is it's a spot that an employee might want to come into on a regular basis to put in their timesheets or whatever. And so while they're in viewing their timesheets, they can see these dashboards, and they can even, if they have the rights, they can run financial statements too. And so you can also post things like snow day, or please update your Social Security information with us, or please we've got a new health plan or health plan renewals. So you can send messages to employees as well on that. And they can also request changes to their taxes. So, but that's a sort of a useful thing. So it can be tied in with payroll, or it might not be. It might just be a dashboard window, or it could be tied in with some other module. So that is an example of what an employee portal would look like for dashboards. And now I am going to shift over to Sarah here.
And Ian, as you do that,
Yep.
and maybe Sarah can answer the question as well. We did get the question about, do you have any recommendations on the best entry level, low cost dashboard software for nonprofits?
I would kick in, because I'm not the Salesforce guy here, but I think Salesforce is a good deal because it's free, and you can import in data that's not fundraising only. There are some other tools that I've looked at. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I've Googled some. But eventually you end up having to pay a monthly fee. Excel is a viable alternative because one of the things about Excel is sometimes, say in the case of a board, you don't really have a way for them to get into a system, and so you can give them a dashboard in Excel. The problem is it's just not continually updating in front of you. But you'd be surprised how many big organizations use Excel to do dashboards. I think the trend is, more and more to systems like an ERP system or a development system like Salesforce or CRM system. But there's a lot that are doing in Excel, and it's the cheapest that I can recommend. So anyway. Okay, Sarah.
Well, and to that point too, just, when you think about, cost-effective solutions now, also keep in mind scalability. If your organization sees a huge growth increase, which we hope that it does over time, Excel is not going, for the most part, is not going to be a scalable solution to track not only the data that powers the dashboard, but your dashboard changes or needs will probably change as well. And as both Ian and I mentioned, Salesforce does give 10 free licenses to any 501c3 nonprofit, and they have what they call the Nonprofit Success Pack, which is a free it's basically the core components of Salesforce that allow you to track donors and gifts. And with that come dashboards pre-made. Most of the components that you see on my screen actually today come with the Nonprofit Starter Pack pre-set up for you. So, setting up and trying to figure out how to create them is very painless because they've taken that work out of that, and they come with the system preloaded. So what we see on my screen is, can you guys see my screen actually?
Yep.
Okay. So Salesforce is also a browser-based database, and that's, this is the system that I'm familiar with, so that's what we'll show you today. And just a couple more so that you can see, again, just not screenshots, but just some more examples of some really popular KPIs that are helping nonprofits make decisions and driving them to, different types of fundraising initiatives or just newer ways. So just some quick explanations. This is kind of opposite from the screenshot that we saw, but this is showing us what types of donors are giving, household donors versus organizational donors, and where are more revenues coming in from what side. I really like this dashboard here, new donors this year. So compared to last year. So last year we had 197 new donors. We only have 40 so far this year. So I think this is a really strong KPI in terms of fundraising. And then even with this 40, out of these 40 people, how much revenue have we raised from those new donors this year? And if our goal is $100,000, we're 24% to that. So the dashboards inside of a CRM system like this, we actually can plug in multiple graph components to the same data. So the example behind the scenes here, both of these dashboards are actually using the same report. I'm just asking the graph to display different formats on account versus a currency or the sum value of the donation amount. So there's a lot of flexibility here, and like I said, a lot of these components come with the nonprofit starter pack so that you don't feel troubled or you don't feel overwhelmed by having to create these by yourself right off the bat. And a couple more just to point out some of the various formats. This is an example of our campaigns that we're running in this database. So we have something like capital campaign, all of our grant money, so we can very easily see the breakout. And there's even a nice hover feature like an AccuFund where you can see the specific currency value and the percentage of the total amount that campaign is contributing. And this graph right here is more of a drill down to specifically just the annual campaign. And it's going back about, 15 years to show us we can very clearly see a downward trend in the performance of this campaign, but even highlighting over to see the fiscal year and the performance of the sum amount and the percentage of the total amount. So I think that this line graph shows is a very strong representation of what dashboards are supposed to show you, which is an overall bird's eye view of the performance or the metrics that you're looking at to help you make decisions on your development resources. So, with that, just scroll back up to the top so you can take a peek one last time. But again, these are customizable per organization. So not only would you just have in most CRM systems kind of an out-of-the-box dashboard, you could certainly reuse those or should be able to reuse those and make tweaks based on the way that the statistics that your organization needs, or completely create a custom dashboard from scratch. So. With that, I'm just going to jump to our very last slide, which is just our contact information. Where's my?
Oh, yeah, they can see it. There you go.
Here's Ian and I's contact information. If you have any questions about dashboards in general or anything that you saw on our screens today, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. Ian, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to add?
Yeah, just that, we are not Salesforce, we're AccuFund, but we do help organizations implement Salesforce, and Sarah can certainly give you information on how to get started with using Salesforce in your organization. And then where she would come in is if you wanted to bring in historical data or data from other fundraising systems that you might have. So, it's a good deal being free, and we're happy to guide you along that. So feel free to contact us. And then if you're in the need to a different accounting system or ERP system, then please look us up. And thank you all for taking the time, and wish you good luck with your dashboards, and wish you all a good year, 2019. Thank you. Thanks, Mac.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And we will get everybody a copy of these slides later today, and we'll add that contact information in there as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a good afternoon.